This took place a few summers back when I was still living with my parents in the house I grew up in. I was 17. One random weekend, my parents decided to leave town for a few days without taking me along, which was totally out of character. They were the kind of people who were always around, constantly tending to the house and rarely doing anything for themselves. As long as I could remember, I'd never seen them go away together, just the two of them. Naturally, I saw it as a golden opportunity and invited MJ, my girlfriend back then, over for the weekend. It felt like a once-in-a-lifetime situation. The entire house to myself, no interruptions. MJ had this mischievous streak that made everything feel a little riskier, a little more thrilling than it should have. Honestly, that was part of why things eventually didn't work out between us, but I'm not getting into all that now. Knowing her, I really should have expected what came next. The moment she spotted the heated pool outside glowing in the backyard, her eyes lit up with this spark of playful rebellion. She looked at me and said we should skinny dip, like it was the most natural idea in the world. I reminded her that the neighbors might see, but she insisted, and she had a point. It wasn't like we'd get another shot at something like this anytime soon. Sure, we'd gone swimming before, but never quite like that. At least, I hadn't. I was always the good kid. Polite, respectful, followed the rules. Even now I sometimes get frustrated with myself for being too cautious. Still, MJ's energy was hard to resist. It took some persuading, but eventually I gave in. Her excitement was contagious, and soon enough we were both in the water, laughing and playing under the stars. I know it sounds cliché, but it really was romantic. The pool was warm, the summer night was cool, and for a moment, everything felt perfect, almost dreamlike. Let me explain the layout a little. The pool sat just outside the large bay windows that looked into the living room. Because it was dark outside and the lights were still on inside, we had a clear view straight into the house. It was almost like looking into a bright little dollhouse. I know that probably sounds strange, but if you saw it for yourself, you'd get what I mean. For a while, that view made me feel at ease, like we were still somehow connected to the safety of the house while floating in our own world. That comfort didn't last. At one point, while MJ was talking about what I couldn't even tell you, I happened to glance toward the windows. That's when I froze. What I saw was the absolute last thing I expected. On the far wall of the living room, I saw a shadow. It wasn't strong, but it was unmistakably there, and the way it moved told me it was no trick of the light. It was shifting, walking, like someone was moving deeper into the house. My chest tightened. Panic surged through me, but I didn't want to alarm MJ. I leaned toward her and whispered that we needed to get out of the pool. She didn't ask why. She must have seen the look on my face because she just nodded and followed me without a word. We got out as quietly and quickly as we could. I told MJ to hide in the pool house, shut off the light, and stay completely silent until I came back. Her usual playful energy was completely gone. I could see she was shaken, but doing a good job holding it together. She slipped inside the pool house without saying a thing. I opened the back door carefully and stepped into the kitchen. I was going to deal with it myself. That's just how I'd been brought up. I grabbed a knife off the cutting board and began making my way through the house. There was no doubt in my mind now someone had been inside. I started noticing odd little details that weren't right. A chair in the dining room slightly pulled back like someone had just gotten up from it. A picture frame on the wall hanging just a little crooked. A coffee mug I didn't recognize sitting on the counter. Small things. Strange things. Nothing a typical burglar would bother with. As I crept through the house, the thought started to grow in my mind. What if this wasn't a robber at all? What if it was something worse or something I didn't understand? My heart was racing so hard I could barely think. I was sure I was about to. Every 5 seconds I expected something to jump out, but nothing ever did. I checked every room on the ground floor and came up empty. All the doors were locked, every single window was shut tight. It didn't add up. If someone had really been in there, where the hell had they gone? The longer I walked through the house, the faster that fake courage I'd built up started to drain away. Eventually, I'd had enough. I called the police. They showed up pretty quickly and did a full sweep of the house and yard. They didn't find a thing. No broken locks, no tampered windows, no muddy footprints, nothing. They couldn't even offer a theory about how someone might have gotten in. One of the officers suggested I might have scared off the intruder before. They got the chance to do anything, but I wasn't buying it. Eventually, it got too late to do anything else. The cops left. MJ and I didn't want to stay in the house, but we didn't exactly have a choice. We triple-checked all the doors, dragged a dresser in front of the bedroom door, and tried to get some rest. At about 4 a.m., I woke up to this soft creaking sound coming from upstairs. At first, I brushed it off, thought maybe I was still half dreaming, but then I really listened. No doubt about it. Someone was moving around up there. Floorboards groaned under their weight, and then the sound shifted. Footsteps, coming down the stairs. Like they were heading for the exit, adrenaline hit me like a shockwave. I grabbed the knife I'd left beside the bed and told MJ to stay put. Then I ran out of the room as fast and quietly as I could. By the time I reached the front door, it was wide open. Whoever had been inside was already gone. I didn't even bother calling the police again. There was nothing they could have done. I just made sure every door was locked, again, and went back to the bedroom. The next morning, the full weight of what had happened hit me. All our kitchen knives were missing, every single one. And that wasn't the only thing. Some random electronics were gone, a little cash, a couple of watches, but it was the knives that stuck with me. That part felt intentional. Like whoever had come into our home wanted to send a message, I just didn't know what it was. When my parents returned and I told them everything, they were more understanding than I expected. I'm not the type to get scared easily, never have been, so I didn't let the whole thing get to me too much, but I'll admit, there are still moments I think about how strange it all was. I never figured out how that person got in. Never figured out where they hid while the cops were searching the house. It's just one of those eerie stories that stays with you forever. This next part happened the following year during Holly Bash weekend. I go to Rowan University, and for anyone who's never heard of it, Holly Bash is Rowan's big spring festival, basically our version of Coachella. Every April, it takes over Hollybush Green, right next to the historic Hollybush Mansion. The school sets up carnival rides, brings in food trucks, sets out lawn games, and caps it all off with a surprise concert headliner. It's the biggest day of the year on campus. I was a sophomore at the time, and like most people, I stayed out late that night. Rowan is in a pretty calm suburban area. Glassboro doesn't exactly feel like a dangerous place, even in the middle of the night. That's probably why I didn't think twice about walking back to Chestnut Hall alone at 2 a.m. I was leaving a friend's dorm and just wanted to crash in my bed. What I didn't know was that around 12:30 a.m., a group of masked people, probably 10, maybe more, had been seen all over campus. They were knocking on doors, riding bikes around, just being weird and kind of threatening, including outside of Chestnut Hall. I didn't witness any of that firsthand. I hadn't checked social media. I wasn't scrolling, I was just walking home. It was around 2:30 a.m. when I swiped my ID and went into Chestnut Hall. As I walked toward the stairwell, I noticed someone sitting in the lounge. Not unusual by itself. College dorms never really sleep. But what was off was that this guy was wearing a ski mask. Not a surgical mask or hoodie pulled low, a full black ski mask. And he wasn't scrolling on his phone or doing anything. He was just sitting there, silent still. It took a second for it to click in my brain. I stood near the lounge entrance, frozen, trying to figure out what I was looking at. He didn't belong there, and every instinct I had told me something was wrong. And then, in one fast movement, he jumped up from the couch and turned directly toward me. I didn't wait to see what came next. I bolted down the hall and ducked into the nearest bathroom, slamming and locking the door behind me. I stayed there for what felt like forever, probably just 5 minutes, long enough for the building to go quiet again. I didn't want to be dramatic, but every part of me was on high alert. My gut told me to be careful. Eventually, I opened the door just a crack and peeked out. No one in the hall. I figured maybe he'd left. I stepped out slowly, trying to stay calm. I didn't want to sprint and send myself into more of a panic. I just started walking toward the other end of the building. That's when I saw him again. Still, in the lounge. Still masked. But this time he was sitting in the perfect spot, directly across from where I needed to walk. His bike was leaned up against the exit door, and there was a chair jammed between the door frame and the wall, like it had been intentionally placed to block anyone from leaving easily. I had pepper spray on my keychain. I took it out and held it in my hand, visible. I didn't raise it, didn't say anything. I just showed him that I had it and hoped it would be enough. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it. But I walked forward. He didn't move, didn't try to follow, didn't even blink. It felt like he wanted me to see him, like the fear was what he was after. I didn't look back. I pushed through the door and left the building. I was halfway to Magnolia Hall when I heard the sound of bikes behind me. 3 more masked figures rode up next to me. They didn't grab me or lay a hand on me, but they were taunting me, laughing, saying things I couldn't understand. I know that doesn't sound too serious, but a couple of them were holding what looked like guns. Could have been fake, maybe airsoft. But the intent was clear. They were trying to scare me, intimidate me. I tried to ignore them, but I could. Feel how close they were, riding just outside my reach. I made it to Magnolia and texted my friend to meet me. He came out and walked me back to Chestnut, which helped me calm down. By then, the bikers were gone. I didn't report it. I wasn't hurt, just freaked out. And I didn't really understand why until the next day. That morning, I told my mom everything. She reported it, and that night some of my guy friends messaged me. Turns out they'd had strange run-ins too. Approached by a group of masked guys, and a few of them had what looked like guns. Nobody got hurt, but it was serious, enough that campus police finally started paying attention. There were all kinds of theories about who those guys were. Some said it was just local kids trying to mess with students. I don't know. It's the gun part that stuck with me. Real or fake, it meant a group of masked, possibly armed strangers made it into my dorm that night, the place I was supposed to feel safe. Ever since then, walking home alone has never felt the same. Music. This next story happened 2 summers ago, back when I was still dating Amanda. I haven't really shared it until now. Not because I'm ashamed or anything, but because I didn't want to risk outing her or her family by accident. But we've been broken up over a year now, so I think it's okay. At the time, Amanda was working as a counselor for a summer day camp in the city. It wasn't close by, about a 25-minute drive from her quiet, upscale suburban neighborhood, but she genuinely enjoyed the job, even if I never totally got why. Her family's house looked like something out of a catalog. Big yard, 3 stories, airy rooms, perfect for hosting events. So when the counselors were picking a place for their end-of-summer party, Amanda's house was the obvious choice. I should probably mention this wasn't the first party like this she hosted. It was just the first one I'd been around for, since we hadn't been dating the previous summer. Her parents weren't home that weekend. Honestly, they were never around. I won't go into all the messy details out of respect, but Amanda's family dynamic was weird. It always felt more like watching coworkers interact than a family. Everything between them was transactional. You could tell they were just different versions of the same narcissistic personality, even though they hated that idea. Okay, maybe that's harsh. Her dad was actually all right. I kind of miss him, not gonna lie. But anyway. The night of the party, the house was packed. Dozens of people inside and out, music blaring, drinks flowing. Everyone seemed chill except for this one guy, Pete. The second he walked in, I got a bad vibe. He was loud, way too confident, and zeroed in on Amanda right away. It wasn't subtle either. Full-on flirting in front of me. I didn't want to make a big deal, even though I felt disrespected. Amanda and I had been dating a while, and though I trusted her for the most part, she sometimes got a little too friendly with other guys. It had come up before. Instead of confronting Pete, I took a different approach. I got buddy-buddy with him. Every time he finished a drink, I handed him another. We talked, joked. It was all very casual on the surface. But I was playing a long game. I don't look like a heavy drinker, but I can hold my liquor. Irish and Mexican genes, I guess. The plan was simple. Get him drunk enough to either embarrass himself or pass out. Either way, problem solved. and to my surprise, it actually worked. Fast. By midnight, Pete was passed out in the basement, snoring into a couch cushion. I was proud of myself, honestly. But Amanda wasn't impressed. She figured out what I did almost immediately and called me out on it. I denied it at first, but after some arguing, I admitted I might have helped things along. It wasn't a huge fight, just another thing to add to the growing list of problems between us. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd thrown off the vibe. Later that night, when the party got even louder and messier, I decided to take a break. I stepped out onto the driveway just to breathe. It was cool and quiet out there, peaceful compared to the chaos inside. I was leaning against Amanda's car, staring up at the sky, when I saw someone standing way off at the edge of the yard. They weren't moving, just standing there under one of the streetlights. I narrowed my eyes, trying to make out who it was. When they didn't move, I decided to walk over. Probably liquid courage. I called out, "Hey, you good?" Trying to sound firm but not aggressive. The figure took a couple steps forward, then stopped. Definitely a man. But the shadows made it hard to see anything else. He didn't answer. Instead, he asked, "Are your parents home?" What he asked, it wasn't just the question. It was how he said it, like he already knew the answer. Before I could even reply, he repeated himself, this time mentioning Amanda's parents by name. That's what turned the unease I was feeling into full-on alarm. He knew them. I lied, said my parents were home, hoping it would make him think twice. I was pretty sure he knew I didn't live there and that I was bluffing, but I figured it was better than admitting the house was basically unsupervised. He nodded once and just said, "Okay," before turning around and walking away. I expected him to head toward a car or maybe one of the houses down the street, but he didn't. He just walked down the sidewalk and disappeared into the darkness. I stood there watching as long as I could, but he melted into the shadows and that was it. Something about it didn't sit right with me, but I told myself to let it go. I went back inside and ended up down in the basement playing ping pong with a couple people. Amanda's family had a pool table upstairs, so that's where most of the party had gathered. The basement was quieter, more relaxed, which suited me fine. I wasn't really in the mood to be loud and social anyway. I liked being where I could actually hear what people were saying. At some point, the doorbell rang. I didn't think much of it. This was a party. People were coming and going constantly. But something in the back of my mind tugged at me. Something didn't fit. As I half-heartedly rallied the ball across the table, I realized what it was. Amanda had specifically told everyone to come in through the back door. It was open all night. That door didn't even have a doorbell, so someone had used the front door, someone who wasn't invited. I excused myself and headed upstairs, already assuming I was overthinking it, but still needing to check. On my way up, I passed Amanda's bedroom. She was passed out on top of the covers, fully dressed, clearly unaware of anything going on. That's when it really hit me. I might have been the only semi-sober person left in the whole house. I turned off her light and gently shut the door, then made my way to the front entry. Standing there was a girl named Bella. I asked if she knew who rang the doorbell. She was wasted, barely standing, and trying to get a straight answer out of her felt like trying to reason with a pigeon. She was a total airhead even when sober, so this wasn't a great starting point. After some slurred babbling, she finally mumbled that an old dude had come to the door. Said he was a family friend and needed to return something. I blurted, "You let him in?" She just shrugged and wandered off, probably to go find whatever. Poor soul she'd drag home that night. I sprinted upstairs to Amanda's parents' room, heart pounding. What I found confirmed my worst fear. Drawers yanked open, jewelry boxes empty, closet trashed. That man had robbed the place. My first thought was that he was already gone, that I was too late. I was about to head back downstairs when something in the mirror caught my eye. A quick movement, like someone ducking out of sight. I spun around, but not fast enough. He tackled me before I could even register it. We hit the ground hard and all the air rushed out of my lungs. He clawed at my shirt like he was trying to rip it off me or maybe just pin me down. Fueled by adrenaline and panic, I managed to shove him off. He scrambled to his feet, darted across the room, and dived out one of the open windows. I rushed to the glass just in time to see him drop onto the roof, then disappear into the side yard. I didn't follow. I wouldn't have caught him. I just stood there, breathless, trying to make sense of what just happened. The damage was done. He was gone. I didn't want to keep babysitting the house after that, but I didn't want to be the bad guy and shut the party down either. So I called the police, asked them to come help clear the place out. Most of the local cops knew Amanda's family. It wasn't like they were going to bust anyone. They showed up, kicked everyone out, and I silently thanked them for doing what I didn't have the energy. After they left, I went back downstairs, slapped Pete awake, and told him to figure out how he was getting home. He puked before finally calling an Uber. The next morning, Amanda had no choice but to tell her parents. They were furious, obviously, but Amanda didn't seem to care. She'd always had a thing about brushing off authority, like rules and consequences didn't apply to her. They never even filed a report. No cameras, no evidence, just chalked it up as a loss. I still don't know how that guy knew Amanda's parents weren't home. Part of me thinks he had some kind of connection to them. Looking back, that night told me more about Amanda than I was ready to admit. Her apathy, her recklessness. All the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. Hindsight, as they say, is 20/20.